All right, everybody, another late night at the shop. It's dark outside. And yeah, we had a hurricane a couple days ago, but it's actually really nice outside right now. And thankfully we didn't get the storm as bad as all of our buddies down Bradenton, Orlando, Lakeland. Got a lot of friends, family down there, even on the east coast of Florida. And guys down in Bradenton got rocked pretty good, it looks like. But thankfully, it didn't get us too bad, and we never even lost power here at the shop. It got windy and rainy for a little bit. But being that this is Sunday, or at least Sunday when this video is coming out, and hopefully most of you are watching it on Sunday here. But it's going to be another Cutlass video. And we do have to kind of work on some of the stuff from last week. I haven't finalized this bar yet. And kind of, you know, we did spend some time getting stuff ready for the storm. Kind of rearranged and brought some cars inside, as well as at the house, you know, get stuff taken care of there. But thankfully, we didn't get hit too bad at all. But let's get through the intro, get cranked into everything else we're going to attempt to accomplish tonight, and start rocking on this thing. Here we go. All right, well, first order of business is going to be to cut out this tube, which was holding the, you know, the upper part of the frame from moving in. Well, now that we have this bar on it, as well as this bar, we're tied in back here. I think everything's gonna stay put enough anyways, so that we can cut this bar out, or tube out. It's not really a bar, it's an old thin piece of busted up tubing that has been used for many different purposes in the shop over the years. But then we're gonna mock up a control arm to figure out where full droop is, and then make sure that when the control arm is all the way down, the bar right under here doesn't contact this tube here. And looking at it, like it's got a long ways to go. Like we could even grind this a little bit more and grind the tube to tuck it up even higher, because, you know, if we're pivoting on this bolt to close up that gap, this out here would have to go a long ways, and it's not going to have that ability. With the spindles on it, you know, they hit a spot where eventually the ball joint stops moving in to where it can't pivot anymore. Same with the upper ball joint. So I'm gonna run up, it's buried somewhere up there in my pile of parts. So I'm gonna run upstairs, grab all of that stuff, show you my TRZ billet spindles that this car is getting. And I went down there like right before the hurricane, well, a few days before the hurricane, picked up some parts for Val's car, kind of mid edit on that video, because we have gotten a lot of stuff done to Val's car, and I just got to make some time to edit. My kids were out of school a lot this past week for the hurricane, and they were out today for like a teacher's work day. They're off Monday for a holiday. Like, it's been a mess, but let's make some stuff happen. Here we go. All right, well, first time lapse of this video, and I kind of left this dead spot in here because I thought it was funny, just because I'm up digging around through boxes trying to find all my stuff that's been buried up in this corner for far too long, if we're being honest. But I found my boxes, had my control arms in it, as well as my TRZ billet aluminum front spindles for my Cutlass, and they make some really trick billet stuff. which we will see more of in a future video that I've already filmed with some new billet parts for Val's car, similar to what I'm working with right here with this billet spindles for my car. And then it's kind of funny because I started unpackaging all these things and they come with ball joints because I've had these control arms for so long. They came with stock style ball joints. And then I remembered that TRZ came out with their own billet upper ball joint. So I had to go get them and install them, which you will see more of here in just a second, more close up. But like I mentioned earlier, first order of business is cutting out this piece of, you know, old box steel tubing, pipe, whatever the heck you want to call that. But had to get it trimmed out of the way. We'll do a little grinding to clean up the areas where it was welded to the chassis. And eventually, that joint that was hidden by that piece of tubing, I will go back over with the TIG welder, weld up all the joints, make them, you know, a lot prettier looking than they were stock, because the factory welding was so terrible on this thing. And the majority of all of the factory frames, at least up until, you know, things became where they were all robotic welded, like they just weren't all that great when we were, I guess, doing it manually. And then I had always heard that a lot of times they would have one person weld one side of the frame while the other person was welding down the other side of the frame. I don't know, maybe somebody worked in the factory back in the day and can confirm that. But that's what it looks like all assembled there. Kind of get an idea, and you can see, you know, stock style front control arms, but ultra lightweight, chromoly, you know, control arms from TRZ that accept a coilover front shock. And we're starting to really get somewhere on the front of this thing, and it's getting exciting. Got Grant out back playing on the dyno. But check that out. And these billet ball joints that TRZ makes are awesome. And because it's a com bearing in there, you don't need a dust boot down here. So they stay looking even sweeter. Yeah, that definitely looks awesome. That would be, if it was that low to the ground, this bar is going to be on the ground, which is what it's there for. And also the reason why I am doing it under this other chassis bar. So when it extends back to the mid plate bar here, that's just going to be a really, really stout part of the car. And I think it'll probably hit this front hoop. I don't know. Hopefully I never find out. And yeah, if you have picked up on it, you'll notice my control arms are silver. And normally TRZ arms are black. They look really good black. But when you want to do something custom, you beg and plead, and sometimes your friends will do cool stuff for you. But funny thing is, these arms I might end up selling, because this limiter isn't going to do any good because there's nothing for the bolt to hit. This is their normal travel limiter. So I've got to weld on some kind of threaded insert down here and then use a slider type limiter, or at least have the provisions to do that, because ideally I don't need the limiters. Soccer Mom doesn't use the limiters. We just play with the shocks to snug them up. Although, to be fair, we're not super leaning on Soccer Mom, at least here lately. We've got enough power with the Texas Speed 388 to just run it out the back door with enough boost to run 750s, and we can be soft enough early track that typically we don't spin. typically. But anyways, I am going to see if I can fit another bar. I have another one over there on the bench. Nope, where'd I leave it? Oh, it must be down there on that bench. But I'm going to do it the right way to where I don't have a big gap there, and actually tuck this up even higher, because no matter where it's at, up, down, we have lots of clearance. Lots of clearance, Clarence. So, time for me to get back to work, weld some stuff in. And then if I really get ambitious, maybe I'll chop the firewall out, because I don't think that'll take me too long to do. You know, famous last words, because everything's taking longer than I thought it was going to. And that's unfortunately just race cars. Or any kind of, even like old muscle cars or anything you work on. But that is all pretty up in there. But like I said, definitely seems like it takes longer than you think it's going to. So plan for that on your own project. And if you take your project to someone to have it worked on, chances are it's going to take longer than you think. Even if something turns out looking super simple, because I can tell you oftentimes we put a lot of time and effort into things so that they look simple and they're easy to work on and all that other stuff. Sometimes that might come along with staring at it for an hour or two. It's just the way this stuff goes. The better it works, oftentimes the longer it takes. Especially when you're just sitting here talking to a phone, recording videos for YouTube instead of actually getting work done. Let's see if we can fix that. Get back to work. All right, second time lapse of this video, and it's kind of funny because if you go back to the other time lapse, it kind of ends almost exactly with the same picture that this one starts with. And I'm just measuring this lower control arm angle so that I know where full droop is, and then going to take all this back apart so that I can continue with the fab work, hang it back up, and by measuring it I can also just use the same measurement for the other side of the car, so that when we get moved over there I don't have to mock up the full suspension. I just bolt in the lower control arm, lower it down to the same angle as I did on the driver's side here, and then from there make all this new bar here. And this first part here, the piece that I'm copying onto, the longer piece, that was originally supposed to be the passenger side bar. Well, since I kind of missed on the driver's side bar a little bit, we're just going to repurpose the passenger side one for the driver's side, tighten up some of the spots where I cut it too much, and then I probably could have filled in the gap. Like I had 1/8 of an inch gap like at the end of that long slot that's on the tube. I probably could have filled that in with weld, but at the moment, you know, when I was doing this, decided that it was better to just go ahead and make a new one. So it's working out a whole lot faster than it did in the beginning. But as you'll see here in just a minute or so, I still go through the process of drawing it up and fitting the car that much better. And that's the kind of stuff that really eats up some time. You know, kind of got the polisher out here to polish up all the joints that I know I'm going to be welding soon. And, you know, right off the bat, it definitely fits better than the other one did. But it takes a little bit more effort to go ahead and tuck it up higher into the car. And the reason I went ahead and started the other one, started with this other tube and didn't continue to fit the first tube, is the area where the gap was only going to get larger as I tightened it up into the car. At least I thought that was what was going to happen. So I went ahead and made this new bar. And this kind of just shows you some of the, you know, the time consuming part of it, because it's fit it, grind just a little teeny tiny bit, and then fit it a little bit more, grind it a little bit more. And it definitely eats up some time. And then you get to the point where you look at the clock and it's like, holy smokes, this really took a long time. But if you hadn't figured out, that's kind of how this custom stuff goes. And, you know, maybe you have had that experience on your same car or on your car yourself. But even in this, you know, custom car building world, like, we may be able to do it faster, especially things that we've done more than once. We can probably do it faster than somebody that's just a hobbyist and does it in their, you know, in their home garage. But at the same time, there's times where it just takes a long time to do things. And that's one of the challenges of doing what we do, because a lot of times you eat up so many hours doing this stuff. And then, I mean, like, I may have, you know, 3 hours in this project tonight. And then at the end of the day, when I look at what all got accomplished, it didn't really seem like all that much. But, you know, it's still progress. And eventually this thing's going to be done. And hopefully it's a really cool vehicle that maybe you can come see at an event somewhere. But you might have noticed there a second ago, I started doing some polishing on the tubes that are already in the car, so that I have a nice clean area to weld to. And then drilled my pilot hole in the front cross member, even though it's still open at the back, but I eventually plan to cap that. So it's just a lot easier to go ahead and drill the pilot hole for the warm air to pass through as we heat up the air inside of the tube from welding. If you guys didn't know, that's the reason why we do that. But I'm just using a zip tie in the back, one of those reusable kinds where you can actually unlock it and release the zip tie. And then one of those centurial angle magnet holders on the front to hold the bar in the exact location that I want to. Going now to get the HTP TIG welder so that I can hook up to the car and start burning this thing in. And I'm not going to completely weld it. One, because I want to get the other bar in so that it doesn't try to distort or pull or shrink any of the frame just because of how it's, you know, only being welded on one side. And the second reason is because I don't want to melt the bushings that are in the control arms. Because like I mentioned earlier, these control arms may end up being for sale because I've got to do something a little bit different, or I need to grind on these control arms and push all the bushings out of them, have them repowder coated. I don't know if I'm going to do all that. But I guess we'll see as I think about it more. And there's rumors of a new upper control arm coming from TRZ, but I'll have to tell you about those when they get a little closer to being released. Well, we got things looking a little different in here now, which I can't remember what I time-lapsed last, but haven't finished this bar yet. And part of the reason is it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And kind of ended up back on the dyno with Grant and Chuck, tinkering with the Corvette. And that thing is making really good power for being 311 cubic inches. And there might be a little bit more left in it still. Maybe we'll show you more of that as we get that thing wrapped up. But I'm calling it a day. And yes, I still have to finish pulling this up into that bar just like I did over here. But it's gonna be kind of snazzy once it's all done. I may even fill this in and plate it off completely to seal that off. I don't know. I do know there's gonna be a belly pan that mounts inside of this here. Like it'll have some tabs, and I'm hoping I can keep the engine totally above this. So possibly in the next video, so it's Friday night or Saturday morning now, if you want to call it that. My plan is to come down possibly Sunday, today when this is coming out, or I'll stay late on Monday, finish that, and then I will probably try setting the engine back down inside of it, because I want to see how the height works out. Like, I know this bar is lower than the original crossmember, because if you guys can see, like, this was basically the height of the front crossmember too. Like when it had the bolt up here, and no, that's not touching. There's still a gap. See, there's a gap. But the factory crossmember was basically there because the bolt holes were about that same distance from the bottom in the crossmember that went across the front here. So I know I'm a little bit lower, and then the engine will tuck back behind this crossmember, because I know this is where the front of the engine is, where the motor plate bolts, and the oil pan is behind that. And so the idea is that the rack will be here in the front, hopefully tucked up under the balancer just a little bit. So possibly in the next video, I might actually set this thing down on the ground, kind of get it similar to ride height or pretty close to ride height. Like, I have some dimensions as far as where I expect this to be off the ground once it's all said and done. Kind of like Val's car down there, which I gotta admit does look pretty sweet sitting over there in the shop at her ride height. Yeah, may not look like a lot from here, but there's a lot that's happened over there. Some of you may can pick up on some of the stuff that's going on at the front of the car up there. And then on the other side, so, you know, there's some pretty cool stuff that maybe you saw in Val's thing there. And I do have a video on Val's car that is, I think I've got it all the way filmed, but just kind of in storm prep and having my kids out of school for a few days kind of just messed me all up with that editing. But I got to get this video out for Sunday, because we just got to get Cutlass videos done for Sunday. And I got to give my girlfriend a big shout out, because she made me come down here tonight. She's like, you got to get that video done. I said, okay, you're right. Even though I didn't want to, because we were going to go out to eat, but we're going to go do something. I guess turns out it's really today, Saturday. Gonna go spend the day together. I'm tired, it's late. I'm gonna go home and get some rest so that I can go have a fun day with my girlfriend. And then I will be back down here Sunday or Monday night late to finish this, as well as set the engine into here and see what all that looks like. I expect it to land behind this here, like I said maybe a minute ago. I don't know what I've cut out by now, because I was zoomed in to where you guys could probably count the hairs in my eyebrows a minute ago. But it's late, I'm rambling. I'm gonna go home and go to bed, and hopefully edit this video on Saturday so that I can post it whenever it comes out and you're watching it. So thank you again for watching, subscribing, following along, all that good stuff. Starting to see some progress on this thing, and like wrapping up the cage. Like, I know there's still the door bars and the funny car cage to do, but that'll go way quicker than all of this stuff, just because this stuff is, I'm having to think a lot. And when it gets late after hours, my old brain doesn't work as fast as it does when I'm fresh in the morning. Anyways, I'm rambling. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.